Yes.
Welcome, the stage is yours.
Okay, thanks. Thanks a lot. Yes, Willem gave this wonderful title. He said, can you speak about the need for social responsibility? So those are very, very big words, the need for social responsibility. So first of all, thank you, Willem, for the opportunity to speak here, and I consider that as an honor. I still remember the first time I visited ever gaming in Holland, much shorter on my own quitting gambling. I'm a former gambler. I was honestly almost physically sick at that time, being so close to the industry again. In fact, the industry that almost killed me. Note that I is here a finite verb and not a direct object. Only myself was responsible for that addiction and not the industry. Not the cafe owner who let me gamble at the time, and also not the municipal official of the place Emmen, who helped make slots in the catering industry possible. Today is not about me. Yet it is useful to look at parallels, to see how it can be done differently, to see how it can be done better, more responsible, really responsible, because that term is often misused in my opinion. Thank you, Willem, also for this platform as a former gambler of experience or experience expert. The law in the Netherlands has assigned quite a role to the experiential expert, and I also grabbed that role, and it fits me wonderfully. In an ideal world, I think all people would fit well together. That's how I am. I like it when everybody is doing fine. Now grown up, old and wise, I know that unfortunately, not everyone has that. And with a dramatic example of Gambler X has lost 70k in the first 2 months after the market has opened, some people don't get any further than, yeah, that's his own responsibility. And in my view, you still have to learn then. You have to learn a lot then. And no, that is different from, this is the industry's fault. No, the gambler, the provider, and who knows, politics or perhaps society also failed here. We have let fall someone down. Politics in a democracy is always society. Society chooses the politicians after all. Dutch society has reacted strongly to the gambling advertisements that have been poured out over our country since the 1st of October last year. Necessary, the industry shouted, because of the canalization. One has to know where the legal gambling circuit is. And I can follow, even as an old gambler, I can follow the reasoning. Meanwhile, CEOs of major gambling companies in the Netherlands have already admitted that it was a tad of the absurd side, and it is less right now. Channeling or canalization is also an occasionally misused word. After all, pointing out the legal offer can also be done in other ways. And the illegal offer could also be tackled more harshly, and this is something that I didn't hear today. I've already suggested the idea of simply putting the legal providers on a poster together with a warning message about the risk of gambling and broadcasting this before, for example, twice a day. The money saved on advertising can then be invested directly in healthy information. And I think this still is a less stupid idea than you think, perhaps. Pas op gamen en gokken, my organization, beware of gaming and gambling, is common in schools and speaks so many students and teachers. The average response from education to gambling advertisements is not positive. The average teacher in the Netherlands who tries to give good education and healthy life lessons states that we are not allowed to advertise cigarettes, alcohol or drugs. But this comparison is obviously flawed, since gambling is really a different product. And while cigarettes and alcohol are always bad for a human being, gambling is not always that. At the same time, a person can do very well, in my opinion, without gambling, and I am forever grateful to the day I quit, I stopped gambling. Former gambling addicts themselves are, of course, extremely critical. Why legalize something that can have such disastrous consequences? A logical response, also in line with their recovery. Definitely something to listen to, though. For them, each advertisement on gambling feels like a knife in their body. After all, none of us wanted that, didn't we? Partners of addicts are much more fierce. They compare gambling providers directly to drug dealers. And my wife or my kids can tell you that this comparison is less nonsensical than you perhaps think. Over the past week, I delivered 3 additional addiction prevention training courses to staff at provider 888 in Gibraltar, with an actor as required by law and with the story of an experienced expert. A complete workout and not a stripped-down cheap version of it, as it should be, so to say. In the evening after the training, I spoke to a lady who works there and who came from Romania, and I met her in Gibraltar. She had fled, she said. And I asked, what for? After all, the days of Ceausescu are far behind us. I fled from my ex, she said. He gambled. He sold my things, he sold his things. He threatened me. He took out loans in my name and they did everything God had forbidden to deliver money. Now she got a job through a friend at 888 in Gibraltar, and she moved. She got away from him. And now she feels guilty working for a gambling provider, but what was she otherwise supposed to do? Now she's still somewhat happy. At least she works in the responsible gambling department of that company. It's just one example of the madness a gambling addiction can lead to. Those are the stories we should all avoid. And altogether, with the word all, I mean the gambling providers, the politicians, and also the gamblers themselves. And indeed, no one is forced to gamble. But the product is maddeningly appealing to some. So shared responsibility is a must. And industry can play a role in this attractiveness. That's what I've always advised many companies. Take it easy. Slow down a bit. You do not have to offer ridiculous bonuses. That's a choice, really. The term bonus whore is common among addicted gamblers. And the term bonus hunters is too. It encourages more gambling and it is extra addictive. You therefore have a direct influence as a company and as an operator. So make use of it. Stop giving the junkies free cocaine. Agree together to stop this. Another point I want to make is the contact with your gamblers. I call them gamblers, I don't call them accounts or players. The contact with your gamblers. You all have an overview of the gambling behavior of your gambling by algorithms. You pride yourself on having more data than your land-based colleagues have. You all send them emails and you send them pop-ups. And in your prevention policy, you often talk about the know your customer principle. But you don't still know anything about your gamblers. You don't know where they gamble. You don't know what their mood is, if they are sad or emotional, if they are chasing their losses from another provider, and if they still can honestly look their partner in their eyes, nor how many accounts they actually have at the moment. So get in touch, make real contact with them, call them, video call them, even better. Put accounts of gamblers you are concerned about on hold until you are sure they're okay. A pop-up is the most impersonal message a person can receive. You also want personal contact with your GP. I don't think you want an email from them, let alone a pop-up. We see that you have been betting a lot more in the last 2 weeks. Do you actually think gambling is still fun for you? Are you fine? Such an email can be called cynical and is at odds with the concept of duty of care, especially when you lost, for example, 20K in 2 months, money that you stole from the company you work for. Now, how should it be in an ideal world? Let's think in chances. I'll give you the example. The way in which you can really watch the gamblers together, and it goes like this. Centrally, a gambler deposits the amount into his one gambling account. That account is accessible to all providers, both land-based and online. The centrally set limits apply to all the parties. If a gambler gambles from his account in a land-based casino, it will be deducted from his player card. Ditto goes for any internet gambling sessions. And money gone means money gone. Centrally, it is looked at in advance what someone can miss depending on income and expenses. Compare it with taking out loans in the Netherlands. The data is also linked, and as a resident, I am well protected against excessive borrowing of money. And if it can be done in lending, it can also be done in gambling. It is a matter of will, really. Nothing more and nothing less. At ICE in London, I was this year, and I saw what intelligent products you can make. Then you can also make a common entrance gate, as you can with Crocs and Yexit. So if you really care about your gamblers, proactively discuss this within your industry associations. Surprise Dutch society, surprise me. By the way, speaking of trade associations, throw away those parties that make a mess of it. Be self-cleaning and speak sternly to each other. So if you, like me, know that a ban on role models is coming, and you notice that your fellow gambling company simply uses new former football players in advertisements, then you should address them together, I hope. The entire industry will otherwise suffer from your failing colleague company that is looking for the edges of the law. Gambling providers differ very little from each other, state-owned or not. You really offer exactly the same product. There's absolutely no difference in my eyes. You all have roulette, you all have slots. You can only distinguish yourself by becoming the best pupil in the class. And as far as I'm concerned, the future of gambling companies in the Netherlands only exists for those parties that take the best care and genuinely care about the well-being of their gamblers, for their health, that is. And those who do not have that as their highest aspiration and who are really just money grabbers should immediately surrender their license without any mercy. And oh yeah, stop making that scary connection to sports. Football is a fun game, has nothing to do originally with gambling, or it shouldn't. And kudos to those gambling companies that don't sponsor sport clubs. Next season, there will be no professional football clubs in the Netherlands that do not also receive money in one way or another from gambling providers. In my opinion, this is a sick situation, because young children are already singing the songs of gambling commercials during intermission. And a very young generation already knows the names of gambling companies and will consider gambling as a normal product. Gambling is not an ordinary product, but a risky product. Do you remember Formula 1 cars with Marlboro on it? Isn't that allowed anymore? Exercise and sport is healthy, and making a connection with this as a potential unhealthy habit is sad and reprehensible in my eyes. Furthermore, I still miss the healthy message between the gambling commercials. Where is the awareness message about gambling as a risky habit? Politics and addiction care, and who knows, the old addicts could play a role in this. We have now started a new busy intersection, but the traffic lights are not working or have not yet been installed, and everyone understands that accidents then will happen. I also seriously miss the information about gambling in education. Now it seems that we do not educate about safe sex, but invest in abortion clinics. And that is reactive policy instead of proactive. And one of the pillars of our regulator is to inform. Where is this pillar then? Speaking of giving information and our regulator, they could play a role in publicizing licensed gambling companies. Leaving this to the market thus resulted in the advertising boom we already discussed today. It was not difficult to predict this. In fact, we saw this coming from miles away. And now we have to backtrack and take a step back, and it is always more difficult. I'm almost at the end of my speech. There's one more discussion I would like to revive, and that is the question whether we in the Netherlands want the state to operate casinos. The state should take care of its citizens. At least that's what I teach children when I'm working in schools. At the same time, how am I supposed to explain that the state makes a lot of money by inciting its citizens to gamble? Is there such a thing as state beer? Is there anything like state cigarettes? A few years ago, there were, I believe, a few Holland Casino branches for sale. I would like to see Holland Casino and the National Lottery Organization for sale. Only then the state can truly and objectively monitor and control these casinos. And I hope that ministers and members of the parliament will pick up this again. It would really benefit the credibility of both the state and both the casinos. Finally, a word to healthcare. Addiction care is united in the VKN, Addiction Science Netherlands. They have closed the door to gambling companies and no longer wish to be in contact with them. This is what I understood. I appeal to them, please do this. Talking to is always much better than kicking, and always much better than ignoring. And if you don't stay in touch, but stand on the sidelines, I will hold you personal, co-responsible for the victims gambling is still making today. And I think I'm out of words right now. Please do always remember where your salary comes from, because from a certain percentage, this is from sick people suffering from the disease called addiction. And from my own experience, I can tell you that is a rotten, rotten disease. I don't wish it on anyone, even not to you, of course. Have a nice day today, and again, Willem, thanks for asking me to speak.